Welcome back to GA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I'm delighted to be joined here by Seamus Brady from the Play on GA podcast. We're going to be running through all the weekend's football action. We're going to be discussing, I suppose, the disappointment performance of Dublin yesterday and I suppose the missed opportunity that was there for Roscommon. We'll also be looking at the Derry and Monaghan draw, Cork's big win, obviously away to Louth, and of course Armagh grinding out the victory versus Westmeath. We will be discussing the hurling as well, but that'll be on a separate show tomorrow. We're going to pre-record that after this one, so that'll be out tomorrow. Obviously, a lot to discuss there as well. In fairness, but I suppose first of all, Seamus, a very busy weekend of football action. I mean, just the 4 games, but plenty of talking points as there seems to always be in the football championship, and especially with that Dublin Roscommon game. I mean, I don't know what you're thinking, but for myself anyway, I still don't know if I've even calmed down after what was such a disappointing performance in more ways than one.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it was a weekend where none of the 4 games from the championship, like I was just flicking through them in my head there when you were introducing it. Like, I don't think any game went kind of according to plan. Like, Armagh beat Westmeath, yeah, but it was by nowhere near the level that we thought they would. Cork beat Louth, yeah, okay, I predicted, myself and Matthew predicted that would happen. And then the Dublin Roscommon game, that was just, we'll get into that, but like, where do you go with that?
Yeah.
No, I've taken over your show, Aaron, but
yeah, we still have you here. There we go.
Good stuff. All good now?
All good now. Just fixing up the camera ever so slightly because a bit of a different setup here, so I just having to make sure it all looks good. But I think we're good to go now.
Yeah, no, so I was just saying that apart from really the Cork Louth game, I think there's an argument there that no game went according to plan. No game, like particularly the Dublin Roscommon one, that definitely did not go to plan. Derry Monaghan as well. Like, look, I know Monaghan put in a much better performance this time, but Derry do look way off where they were, in my opinion. Like, here's a hard fact for you. In the first 2 games of the championship, Derry hit 4 goals and 38 points in the 270 minutes since they've hit 124. So, I mean, that tells you what you need to know.
Yeah, and it's mad as well, even looking at the group stages, because I've seen a statistic that even came out there, like all of the sides who've gotten to provincial finals, only 2 of them have actually won, and that was actually Galway and Armagh. When you look at Armagh's victories, you said there was less than impressive in fairness, whereas Galway grinded it out against Tyrone, and Tyrone were obviously down to 14 men. But then you look at the other provincial winners, obviously Dublin didn't win, Kerry didn't win, a lot of the beaten finalists obviously didn't win. Sligo drew at Kildare, Louth obviously got bet by Cork. So, like, do you think the group stages, I mean, the group stage is an interesting one, but obviously, like, with the fact that sides got to provincial finals and won their provincial titles, like, a lot of them, in fairness, didn't get, like, a lot of them didn't get a huge break or didn't get a huge layoff. And you're looking at a couple of the sides, obviously, who have had a long layoff, who have had a long break. Like, a lot of them played very well in a lot of those games. So, like, what's your thoughts been on the group stages so far?
I think it's interesting that you'd look at it and say, like, the most impressive turnarounds have happened, in my opinion, for Mayo and probably for Donegal. In terms of that, Mayo had that victory, against Kerry down in Killarney. Donegal had that victory against Clare, where they kind of turned it around in a period of the game where Clare looked like they were guaranteed to kind of go on and push on and win that game. Whereas then Donegal had a lot of time to think about that result, to think about how wrong it had gone for them. Same thing with Mayo. Had a lot of time to think about the Roscommon game, a lot of time to build back up their energies. And I feel like, and Cork as well, another team that had a big long break, time to think about that loss, come back and get the victory. It is maybe an interesting point that in a year that's been so packed, every week is the next round of fixtures. It is interesting to see that the teams that have got the breaks are the teams that have gotten off to the better start here.
Yeah, it is interesting, all right. Like, because I suppose, yeah, like there is so much sort of like up and down nature to the group stages, and then, as you said, like the fact that some teams have had a bit of a they've obviously gone into the season, or gone into these group stages in much better form, whereas a lot of the sides have won their provincial championships have gone on in a bit of a not so good form. So I'd be curious to know, even people watching as well, like what their opinions are on it. But I suppose we'll start with the action in Croke Park yesterday. It was Dublin 1-11, Roscommon 14 points. Haven't had a chance to watch the game back since being at the game yesterday, to be honest with you. I'll definitely try and watch it back maybe tomorrow at some stage to actually see the game more. But yeah, like from a Dublin perspective, obviously very disappointed. I mean, we never really got going until the start of the second half. Like, we had a good period at the start of the second. Roscommon setting up very similar to what we seen of Kildare a couple of weeks ago. Dublin seemed to be really struggling to break down blanket defences now all of a sudden, which was something we were actually quite good at in the Jim Gavin era, sort of post 2014, in my opinion. And we just hugely struggled. And Roscommon, like, in fairness, they'll be kicking themselves waking up this morning thinking they haven't won in Croke Park in a championship game in 43 years. That was the perfect opportunity to go and do so. But not so good from Dublin, decent from Roscommon. What was your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it was there for them. And I think the main one was looking at some of the decisions that they made at key moments. Like, Donny Smith's chance is the one that, like, when he came on the loop and hit it with his left. Diarmuid Murtagh as well, going for the absolute Hail Mary of a shot right at the end. And then Conor Cox taking an outside of the boot shot from outside the 45 to win the game. And I was like, why did you not bring up Conor Carroll? Let him put it on the deck and let him have a crack at it from distance. We'd seen that he had the range. We've seen that he had the distance. Why did you leave it? Like you'll know this. Like, how many times do you mess around with your mates kicking a ball outside of the boot from that type of distance? You know yourself, it's a 1 in 10 shot. Like, realistically, like, it's a hard shot to pull off, even for somebody as talented as Conor Cox is. And immediately, as soon as it left his boot, you knew it was going nowhere near the crossbar. And this is, like, I watched your video immediately reacting to the game, and I completely agree. I don't think Roscommon were even at their best. Like, Roscommon weren't at their best. That wasn't as good as I've seen Roscommon play. But Dublin, on the other hand, were well below the levels that Dublin are capable of. And I do want to actually throw this back to you, because I genuinely think this is the weirdest couple of years following Dublin that I think I've ever had. I think, like, the mid 2000s was kind of like, we knew where we stood. We were a good team, but we struggled to get over your Kerrys, your Tyrones, your Armaghs, Mayos, teams like that. And then obviously 2010s, we were the best team in Ireland from about 2011 to 2021. We were the best team in Ireland until Mayo beat us. And now we're in a really weird era where we've, like, on paper, we have pretty much the same team that we had a couple of years ago when we were winning All Irelands, but we completely change in every game. One game we look fantastic, then the next game we look very beatable. I think, would you agree? I think it's the weirdest era to support Dublin.
It definitely is, all right. And I'd say it's definitely a reality check maybe for a lot of the younger supporters who maybe grown up seeing Dublin obviously win the 6 in a row, and, you know, even before that as well with 2011 and 2013. Like, in the decade of the 2010s, you only had to go more than a year without Dublin winning an All Ireland. So we were definitely quite spoiled. But yeah, I don't know what it is, like, to be honest, because I was even thinking of that, and, like, when you actually think back to it, that, you know, when Dublin won that All Ireland in 2020, obviously under Dessie Farrell, since then, like, there hasn't really been too many games really where you can say Dublin played really, really well, and especially against a good team. Like, fair enough, in that mini league, sort of, you know, just after the All Ireland win at the start of 2021, you know, we were okay against Kerry. Like, we beat Galway, beat Donegal, I think, as well. But how much you can read into them, I don't know. In the Leinster Championship that year, we were dreadful. Nearly got beat by Meath, if people don't forget. Remember that game against Wexford, obviously, as well. And we obviously end up losing the game versus Mayo in the All-Ireland semi-finals, and sort of threw that game away after looking so good. And then last year in the league, we played 7 games, lost 5, winning 2, go into the Leinster Championship and look pretty good. But again, the level of opposition that we're playing is clearly not of the standard of Division 1, and definitely not of the standard of anyone even coming close to winning an All-Ireland. We had a good second half against Kerry, but you could argue Kerry just let us back into that game, to be honest with you. Like, they missed the penalty with Sean O'Shea. They didn't capitalise after the black card from Evan Comerford as well. And then this year as well, like, when you look through the league, like against Meath, I thought we were all right. Derry in the first half, we looked good. Louth in the Leinster final, we looked good. Every other performance was fairly abject. Could have got beat to Clare, could have got beat to Louth in the league. Could have, Kildare could have possibly beaten us. Cork should have beaten us as well. And then Roscommon should have beaten us yesterday. So when you actually look at it, like, this decline from Dublin, it's not overnight. It's been happening for the last couple of years, and maybe now people are becoming more wide to it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, what was the game before the Kerry game last year? Was it the Leinster? Like, just jog my memory.
It was actually Cork in the quarterfinals, and again, it was another game that didn't really look amazing, to be honest.
So let's go through this. When Dublin beat Mayo in the 2020 final, and I know that is an extreme, like, bending of the rules, but when Dublin beat Mayo in the 2020 final, Mayo had been relegated to Division 2 that year. They had played in Division 1. But for Dublin's last win over a team that was in Division 1, that would be playing next year in Division 1, I think you have to go back to the 2019 win over Kerry. Because 2020, we beat only the Leinster teams, then beat Cavan in the semi-final and beat Mayo in the final. 2021, we won Leinster and then went out to Mayo in the semi-final. 2022, we went through Leinster and beat Cork in the quarterfinal, then lost to Kerry. Is it that far ago? Am I missing something, or like?
Yeah, no, like, I think you could be onto a good point there. Like, I think you could argue, like, even
the Mayo one, realistically, right? Mayo are always a Division 1 team, and we're a Division 1 team that year. So you'd say we haven't beaten a Division 1 team since our All-Ireland final clinching performance. I think that's more fair to say. But, like, that's still a shockingly long time without a big win in the championship for Dublin.
It definitely is all right, yeah. Like, and as you said, like, with 2020, like, even a few people are commenting here. Like, Rory says here, we won it in 2020 because they were coming off the back of Jim Gavin's style of play. Even A2 says here, Desi is just absolutely clueless. His post-match interview is so painful to watch. An interesting one about that.
We won it in 2020 because Donegal and Kerry dropped the ball. That's why we won it in 2020, I think.
Yeah.
Kerry were playing Cork,
and
I think
when you think about it, Meath, Cavan, Mayo, yeah,
playing two wing backs at wing forward in that game. That was the worst Kerry performance I've ever seen. And then Jack O'Connor comes in, 2 years later, and all of a sudden they're, super tight at the back and All-Ireland winners. Like, that's not by chance. O'Connor should have got that job long before he did, I think.
Oh, I think we're back here.
We're back.
We're back. Yeah, I don't know what happened to my internet there, but you were saying there anyway about Dublin's poor performance anyway in 2020. I'll just run through some comments here. Maybe Test Case says here, if the comment does decide. There we go. I don't know what's going on. We're having
We're back.
we're having a bit of a mare, I think, phone or internet wise here at the minute. Anyway, but we're on the mobile device. This is the problem when you do these live. Sometimes you can have all these sorts of issues,
Permutations.
problems. Yeah, all these kind of technical issues and everything else. But yeah, like I suppose from a Dublin perspective, like in general, like, 'cause I was even thinking as well, like in terms of the decline that we were mentioning, like in terms of the fact we do look so poor and we have looked so poor at times so far this year. Like, what's even the reason that you'd even put it down to? Like in your opinion, like is it management? Is it players just getting older, or what would you put it down to?
Good question. I think I seen some stat. I think it was, and look, you would never be the type to point fingers and say that blame certain players and individuals and stuff like that. But I seen it, like a colleague of mine in work told me that Mayo's only survivor from their 2013 All Ireland final team was Aidan O'Shea. And Dublin still, apparently, I was quoted at 9 players that still start relatively consistently for Dublin from that 2013 All Ireland final team. So, like, obviously, you've got Cluxton, you've got Fitzsimons, McCarthy, you've got Mannion, like Dean Rock is in there as well, like Costello, Kilkenny. Like, still, Dublin have not changed since then, really. If you think about it, we haven't got the injection of talent coming through the ranks. The only players that have really come through since, like, the only players that, like, think about it, since 2019, who's come into this team? Like, Lee Gannon is obviously one that's come in. David O'Hanlon looked like he was one that was coming, but then for some reason, Dessie Farrell just kind of decided that he was going to go back to Cluxton. And I feel like that's a definite motivator if you're talking about for Dublin. Like, that's a definite motivator if you're talking for Dublin. Like, the fact that there's no real competition coming through. There's no lads coming up saying, I'm going to take your jersey, I'm going to take your place if you don't, get your levels up. You look at what happened to Tyrone. Tyrone 2021, best team in Ireland, All Ireland champions. Few lads leave the panel, the competition dies down. Tyrone haven't won a big championship game since. They've won one championship game since their All Ireland championship victory. So I think for Dublin, that's where you need to start. There hasn't been the streamline of talent coming through that there once was.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like, I think it's a hard one to know because, as you said, like squad wise, when you look at the players that are there, when you look at the players that are available to us, like bringing Cluxton back, obviously bringing Jack McCaffrey back, bringing Paul Mannion back into the side as well. Like, it's been so disappointing as well to see the drop off in the performances.
Well, Mannion and McCaffrey made sense because they're late 20s, but Cluxton coming back at 4. Like, Cluxton's over. Stephen Cluxton is older than Davy Burke.
Yeah.
Like, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. But what was your thoughts on Roscommon's performance then? Obviously, from their perspective, I mean, they definitely done a lot right, like in terms of how they were defensively set up, but in terms of not seeing the game through, like the game was definitely there from them. 4 points up at half time. You felt like they were there. You felt like it was going to be their day at one point.
Yeah, I thought they clearly had come with a game plan. They'd come with a game plan that they really thought this is how we're going to beat Dublin. And do you know what? They hung on to the ball really, really well. They pressured Dublin really, really well. And their shot selection, I thought, was really, really good. Their decision making on, right now I'm going to pull the trigger, was really, really good. Forwards like Ben O'Carroll, Kieran Murtagh, Diarmuid Murtagh looked fantastic in the first half, caused Dublin a lot of problems. And then what I was really, really impressed with from Roscommon was how they handled the Dublin goal. Because I have to say, when I was in the stadium and that goal went in and Costello then immediately scored the point, like, I just immediately thought, this is where Roscommon fold. This is where so many teams have looked good for 40 minutes against Dublin, been right there with us, haven't been as far ahead as they should be. Bang, Dublin hit 1-1, the game's level, then they take the lead, and now this is where Dublin kick on and destroy Roscommon. And just the way Roscommon just held them and just let the momentum die down. I thought they handled that period really, really well. And, to put into perspective that heading into added time, Dublin were 2 points up and Roscommon still came back and nabbed the draw. So I think they were fantastic at stages, but I also think they left it behind them. I think Roscommon were about an 8 out of 10 in terms of their performance, in terms of their ability. I don't think that they were at their absolute best. Downey Smith taking that shot on, I don't think he'd be happy that he missed that one. Diarmuid Murtagh, look, it's hindsight. If that had gone an inch more, it would have been probably one of the points of the year. But, it didn't. And then when you're looking back at it, saying this isn't results-based analysis, even if that went over the bar, it still wasn't the right decision to make in terms of stats, in terms of how likely are you to put that ball over the bar. You probably shouldn't have gone for it. Diarmuid Murtagh went for it. Conor Cox is free as well. Again, as I said, that's a 1 in 10 shot at best. Why are you going for that? So they left it behind them in a way that I didn't think they would. I thought the minute that they got that free, I thought surely Conor Carroll is going to come up and have a crack at this. And I was very surprised when he didn't. So a good performance by Roscommon, but I do think that they will be annoyed that they didn't win, because especially when Davy Burke has seen all the fiasco going on with Kildare and Dublin, I think he would have loved to have beaten the Dubs in Croke Park to prove to Kildare that you can beat Dublin, even if they have all the advantages.
Yeah, and it would have been some way as well to I suppose, end the voodoo that Roscommon have in Croke Park. Like when you think back to the last 40 years or so, like obviously 43 years without a win in the championship in Croke Park, like that would have been some story from a Roscommon point of view. But like, interesting enough, even from a Dublin perspective as well, I was looking at the bookies there earlier today, and I was looking at Odds Checker. A lot of people still have Dublin as All-Ireland favourites, which, as we were saying earlier, like off the performances we've seen so far this year, off the decline of the last couple of years, and even from speaking to, listening on the Sunday game and speaking to pundits and everything else, a lot of people still have Dublin as favourites, and a lot of people still believe that they will click into gear at some point over the next coming months or over the next coming weeks in terms of an All-Ireland quarter final or maybe even beyond that. But like, what's your opinion on that? Because as Dublin fans, like, we've seen how poor we've been at times this year. So what, like, is it just sentiment that a lot of people still have Dublin as favourites, or what's your thinking?
Yeah, I think a lot of people still see Dublin as the prime. Like, I think the prime Dublin, like the best Dublin I've seen in terms of a game where I walked away thinking, wow, we've witnessed something special, was Mayo 2019, that semi-final when Mayo came out in the second half, having given Dublin a right good first half. Dublin blew Mayo away in that third quarter and the most awesome display. Probably actually Tyrone 2017 as well, that semi-final, that was as good a performance as I've ever seen. And that's what happens. Like, we as fans, tend to almost crystallize those memories, and those teams become frozen in time. It's like, no, they have gotten older. They're not as good anymore. These guys aren't as good as they used to be. It's what a lot of people do across sports, like Conor McGregor coming back. Everyone's, talking up, his chances of going for the lightweight belt again. Not a chance. Like, people crystallize these memories and they stay forever in their prime in your head. But the reality is this Dublin team isn't as good as they were in 2017, as they were in 2019. They're not as good. This is Dublin now. And the reality is, what have we seen from Dublin now? We've seen a team that can be awesome, but can also be really, really beatable in games as well. And that comment there makes sense a lot as well. Like, have we seen Dublin in the trenches dig a game out under Dessie Farrell?
Yeah, no, we definitely haven't. Like, and that's been
in the
issue.
trenches.
Like, yeah.
When Derry put Dublin in the trenches up in Owen Beg, what happened? We lost. So I don't know. It's a hard one.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, all right. Because anytime the going really has got tough under Desi, like, you'd say we have somewhat choked, or we have sort of fallen apart. There were plenty of comments in here. A few people going on about the internet connection. Should hopefully be okay now. I'm connected off my my hotspot. I'm in a different area of the house, just trying to test a few different things out. So that could be the issue for the internet problem there. But just running through some comments. Mikey says it just takes one big win against Kildare to start the Dublin hype train again. They're still a top 4 team, in my opinion. Sam says the Dublin drop is real, lads. It's just another evolving team and management who just haven't and probably won't hit the heady heights of the Gavin years. And Dave says Crow Park is no place for old men, says there. But yeah, no, I think it's some interesting points. And I think, look, going away to Kildare, I suppose not away from home, really. Obviously, it's in Nolan Park, so it's more of a neutral venue. But look, I mean, you would look at it and think Kildare, like, especially after the performance they gave to us, a couple of weeks ago in Crow Park in that Leinster semi-final. Like, it's not, although Kildare have been quite poor themselves this year, it's not inconceivable that they don't put in a good performance against us. And like, even predicting a Dublin win, like, I think most people would fancy Dublin to win that game, but it's definitely not a sure thing.
No, it's not. It's definitely not a sure thing. It's never a sure thing. As I said when we were chatting about how it's a weird thing to be a Dublin fan right now. Like, it's never a sure thing that Dublin are going to win these games. Like, they could make this game really, really difficult for themselves. Let's not forget the last time Dublin played Kildare outside of Croke Park, Kildare won. So it's one of those things that we have to keep that fresh in our heads. Kildare lost to Dublin by 2 points and ran out of steam on Croke Park's, gigantic pitch last time they played each other. And Kildare should have won that day. Please just start Kevin Feely, start Daniel Flynn, start Jimmy Hyland. If they are free, fit, and ready to go, start your best players. You didn't start them the last time, and you came within 2 points. Try get those lads on side. And I actually expect that to be a really dangerous game for Dublin, because if anybody will get those Kildare lads firing to 100%, it's Dublin.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think they raised their game obviously against us a couple of weeks ago, so there's no reason why they can't raise their game again. I suppose we'll move on then, and we'll have a look at the Derry and Monaghan game, which obviously finished 14 points apiece. A game that ebbed and flowed for large parts. Obviously, Monaghan led going down the home stretch, and then Derry were able to drag it back with a couple of late points from Shane McGuigan. Carl O'Connell obviously levelled the game with the last kick of the ball. We've seen Rory Beggan score an absolute peach of a point close down nearby the sideline as well. Great game in some ways. Like, I mean, especially in the second half. Like, it was a bit slow enough in the first half and maybe not the most entertaining in the first, in fairness. But Monaghan, look, they'll be a little bit disappointed that they didn't come out of Celtic Park with the win. And I think that says a lot with, how this game actually went. But what were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, huge difference from the Ulster semi-final, obviously. I like Monaghan that day. The only man, in my opinion, that stood up to the nail and led from the front was Carl O'Connell. Quite fitting that he's the man that hits the equaliser for them in this game. Yeah, like, just the main point is that all of a sudden Derry's attack doesn't look as free-flowing as it did in the first two games. And I think a lot of people are, talking up Derry as All-Ireland contenders, etc. Look, 14 points won't be enough to beat Galway. It won't be enough to beat Mayo. It won't be enough to beat Kerry, to beat Dublin. And they'll need to score more. That's 2 games in a row now where they've scored less than 15 points. They'll need to, improve on that going forward against the, bigger and better teams. I know that Monaghan are one of the top sides. They're going to be in Division 1 again next year. But considering how, they're definitely not where they were this season.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's an interesting one following Monaghan, all right, because a lot of the time you see the brilliance that they do have in, as you said, Carl O'Connell look very good. You've got Conor McManus, obviously, Conor McCarthy. These lads, like, on their day, Jack McCarron, like, they can be top class forwards. You just don't know what you're going to get with them at the best of times. They do tend to have a bit of a flatness in them. But at the same time, like, under this new management in Vinnie Corey, like, there does seem to be a bit of a battle about them. There does seem to be a bit of a bite about them, which I don't think was there in the Banty days. Like, and even, like, especially when Derry pulled it back and went a point up, you were worried a bit then for Monaghan that their heads would go and that Derry would probably get the next score and just seal the game out. But in fairness, like, they worked themselves back into it by winning the ball back. They obviously, win the last point, obviously, as well. So, like, there does seem to be a bit of a fight and a battle about Monaghan. Like, even when you think back to the Tyrone win as well a couple of weeks ago, like, there is that battle and bite about them. And like, to be fair, getting a draw out of Celtic Park with the fact that they've Donegal and Clare to come, like, Monaghan possibly maybe fancying their chances of winning this group now.
Yeah, definitely. I still look at it and would kind of think, like, more on the side of, can they keep out the other teams down at the other end? Like, because they, like, look, in that first half against Tyrone's forwards looked like they could rip through Monaghan at pretty much any point of that game. Dara Canavan, Darren McCurry, they just looked awesome. Can Monaghan's defence deal with a forward line like Kerry's, like Mayo's, like Galway's? Like, can it deal with that? Like, we'll obviously find out as the championship rumbles on. But yeah, I would look at it and think, depending on other results, obviously, like, Group D has kind of started nicely for Monaghan now. Like, they've faced the hardest test by far and they've managed to get over that. So I feel like going forward, looking at Donegal and Clare, they'll be expecting to pick up 2 wins there. And if they can put up a higher score, which, as we've talked about, Derry's forward line doesn't look as strong as it did in the first 2 games that they played, I actually would fancy Monaghan to beat Donegal and to beat Clare by more than Derry can. So yeah, I think it could be a situation where Monaghan could top the group.
Yeah, and like, and Derry, in fairness, like, they have to go away to Donegal next week as well. Like, and whatever you say about Donegal, I know they are a bit of a mess. Like, they have a win under their belt now against Clare. Like, it's a tough place to go to regardless of Donegal's form. So there we go. Like, I mean, could Derry have put too much into that Ulster Championship, do you think, or what do you reckon? Or, like, because there does seem to be a bit, like, too much of an over reliance on Shane McGuigan, like. And that is the worry. Like, aside from him, when you look at the other forwards, they don't seem to be getting enough, in my opinion.
Oh, without doubt. I'm not trying to sound bad saying this. Like, the plan for Derry going forward now, like the plan for Derry last year, this is why I was very impressed with them in the Ulster semi-final against Monaghan, was they hit 121. They were all attacking. They were all outlets. They were all willing to take the shot at the post. Like, the goal came from Conor McCluskey making that run through the defence. Their attacking plan last year was very much, let's work the ball up as a unit and let's try get it to Shane McGuigan and he can score. That was pretty much their attacking plan. This year, it seemed to be very much all-out attack whenever they had the ball. Now, we obviously know what has changed since that Ulster semi-final. And I just think since then, they've kind of gone back to the way that they were attacking last year. Like, we see Shane McGuigan hit 9 of their points in this game. Like, that is way too reliant on one player. And if he has an off day, or if he's picked up by one of the best man markers out there, i.e. Sean Kelly, like, do you get what I mean? Like, if he's picked up by Sean Kelly or Tom O'Sullivan from Kerry and he has an off day, I don't know if Derry have other players that they can turn to bail them out.
Yeah, that is the worry. All right, just going through some comments here. Sam says Derry have had a handy in fairness, and Gary says, as a Derry man, I won't worry about this. Monaghan are class. Derry are looking okay. Dublin will win All Ireland. They're playing with us. Derry won't lose another game, trust me, except on the final. Yeah, I don't know if I entirely agree with that, but I do get what you're saying at the same time. Gavin says Galway are going well because Walsh was given a break after Kilmacud Croke, so why on earth was Glass on for the Limerick game till now? Derry are running out of steam. I mean, it is an interesting point. Like, they have gone full tilt from the start of Division 2. They've had a lot, like, in fairness, as someone said there, like, Derry haven't had it easy. Like, I mean, to come through the Ulster Championship, like, having to beat Monaghan, then having to beat Armagh in an enthralling game, and obviously now in the group stages, obviously playing Monaghan, they go away to Donegal next week as well. Like, that could be a worry for Derry. But to be fair, that's not a worry that's been gone away, and I'm sure it's something that the Derry management are fully aware of.
Yeah, like, I remember, like, Glass was basically, like, completely agree with that comment. Glass was off the Waddy Graham's Glen bus and he was straight on to play for Derry, like, immediately after, in a game that, let's be honest, Derry were going to win with or without him. I don't know why they insisted on getting him in. That was a perfect chance to try out, someone else there in midfield. How will Emmett Bradley get on in midfield with Brendan Rodgers, etc.? So wait, no, that's a super point. Bradley was the Waddy Graham's Glen man as well. You get what I mean, though. Let's try somebody else in midfield with Brendan Rodgers and see how that plays out. They didn't need him against Limerick, so I was kind of a bit confused when they went with him. But Yeah, like I feel like, look, with Derry, they have gone through it the hard way. Absolutely gone through it the hard way. Like Monaghan and Armagh back to back, hugely testing. And then they get Monaghan again. A Monaghan side that, as we have discussed already on the programme, any team that had more time to look at their last result where they got beaten tended to do pretty well in their opening game here in the group stage. Monaghan had plenty of time to look at that Ulster semi-final, break it down, look at what they did wrong, look at what they did right, and they came ready to put up a fight this time, and they certainly did. And it was a lot more of a game this time.
Absolutely. I suppose looking at another game in the group stage, Armagh 1-13, Westmeath 1-12, obviously at the Athletic Grounds. Again, another game that, as you said, like a lot of games probably didn't go according to plan. I think a lot of people had Armagh winning this by 6, 7, 8, possibly even more, even double digits. Like, I had a Westmeath fan on the show during the week, and even he was saying that this could be double digits, this could be 10 plus. And Westmeath, in fairness, like, they brought a huge amount of energy. Roland O'Toole gave the performance of his life, scoring 1-1. John Heslin was very good. And for Armagh, like, they definitely played with a lot of fire. And with that Conor Turbot goal, it was definitely enough to get them out of jail in the end. Far from convincing from an Armagh perspective, but look, a win's a win. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. But again, like, from an Armagh perspective, it's, whether they're a top contender, I'm not entirely sure after a performance like this.
It's interesting that you say that, because it's like, I was chatting to a few Armagh fans outside Cork Park one of the days, and they were just down in Dublin, and I was chatting to them. I was saying, "Oh, how do you feel about the Armagh year?" And then one of them just goes, "Well, here's one thing: we never make it easy for ourselves anyway." And even though I was expecting Armagh to, I honestly thought Armagh would blow Westmeath away. I was in the back of my head, I was thinking, if there's one team that will, drop their level and nearly get beaten in this game, it's Armagh, because they tend to drop their level and play at the level of the team that they're playing against. Mayo have been a bad team for doing that as well down through the years. You look at 2017, when the same year they should have beaten Dublin in the All-Ireland final, they also should have been knocked out in the qualifiers by a bang average Cork team that year. So it was gas that, like, teams tend to do that, and Armagh tend to take their eye off the ball in games that they should annihilate their opponents. And lo and behold, here we are. Like, Westmeath will be absolutely kicking themselves that they lost that game. Like, a late goal from Conor Turbot, not the most clean goal as well. Like, pretty much just a kind of route one, something off the break. Andrew Murnan pops up with some clutch points, and Westmeath's best efforts come up short. But I do think that they did themselves proud, because I have to say, when I saw them fail to get out of Division 3, when I saw them fail to beat Fermanagh, when I saw them fail to win crucial games in Division 3 to get promoted, I was worried for them going into the All-Ireland group stage. I thought, God, if they get a tough group here, like, they could be in real trouble. And I have to say, they put their best foot forward in this one, and gives me more hope for them going into their next few games now.
Yeah, like, it would be tough for them to get anything from Galway or Tyrone, in all honesty.
No, they won't. But like, as long as they don't get 3 whippings, I think it's something to build on.
Definitely something to build on. All right, I suppose the last game from the football action, Louth 117, Cork 119. Cork obviously having to dig deep in the end. Like, they started very strong. They were leading at half time. Louth obviously done a big turnaround sort of towards the end of the first half, but Cork in the end hold on. Brian O'Driscoll getting the decisive goal there from a Cork perspective. So big win for Cork, like, beaten by Louth obviously in the league earlier in the season. Louth obviously coming in, I know, on the back of that 21-point defeat to Dublin, but they were coming in with a bit of momentum, obviously having come through Leinster. But fair play to Cork. Look, it could have been easy for them to come into this heads down low after that defeat to Clare, but they knew they had to put in a performance, and in fairness, they did.
Well, yeah, like, and I feel like this was the one that the minute that the groups were announced and Cork ended up in the situation that they ended up in, they would have known that Louth was the game to put the money on. Like, Louth was the one that, look, listen, if we're going to beat anyone in this group, it's not going to be Kerry, it's not going to be Mayo, it's going to be Louth. And I think they knew that fine well coming into this game, and they put in a fantastic performance in stages of this game. Made it difficult for themselves at times. Like the goal, I thought, wasn't something that they'll look back on, with delight. A big mistake in the defence, which obviously leads to Liam Jackson putting it in the net, hilariously called Conor Corbett, by the way, by the RT commentary.
Yeah.
But no, that was a funny moment. But an interesting game. I think an interesting back and forth between two sides that are definitely in rebuilding mode. Like Louth obviously have been in rebuild now under Mickey Hart for a few years. Cork are just at the beginning of their journey, but I do think they have more natural talent in terms of their forwards, and I think that's why they got over the line in this game. Brian Hurley, fantastic performance from him. First game back in a while now, looked really, really good. And his influence on the Cork team cannot be underestimated. I thought he really, really led the way at key stages. And for Cork now, they've got that win off their back. I don't think Louth are going to get a result off either Kerry or Mayo, especially beating them. So I think if Cork can just give those two games a lash now between Kerry and Mayo and see what they can learn from them, see what they can pick up from them, I think it will do them all the good.
Yeah, a few comments here. Finton says, love to see Cork go on a good run, sleeping giant. Gavin says, from the last 2 weeks of action, could Kerry Cork be a draw? And Mikey says, Páirc Uí Chaoimh is the place to be next week. Cork have a fire in their belly and they'll rattle Kerry. Supporters have no choice to back them now that the hurlers are out. Suppose it's an interesting one, all right. Obviously, that game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh next week, like, I know Kerry got bet by Mayo, and maybe there's a bit of uncertainty about Kerry, but at the same time, you'd surely still expect Kerry will be too strong there. But in fairness, like, Cork do have this habit of raising their game against Kerry, raising their game against Dublin, getting up for these games, and I suppose, as Mikey was saying there, with the fact that that's going to be like it, hopefully, like the crowd bring the noise and everything else. The fact the hurlers are out, because there's a small chance of an upset. And especially the way this year's championship is going, like, you just never know, like, in fairness.
Yeah, I think it would be an absolute amazing result if Cork could pull it off. And the truth is that, remember, I think was it last year or 2 years ago that Cork were excellent against Kerry for 40 minutes and, like, were performing absolute heroics in defence, but then Kerry just turned on the gas and just pulled away from Cork in the last 20 minutes and ended up winning quite handsomely. But Cork for the first 40 minutes had shown insane levels of work rate, insane levels of fight, hunger, determination. If they can bring that energy and bring it consistently for the 70 minutes, then they absolutely could be in this game. Like, this is a Kerry side that did get rattled by Mayo, but I feel like it's a Kerry side that now know that their safety net is gone. They've lost that one game. If they lose another, they could be in trouble. So I feel like they will know that they need to win this game. And I think they'll take it super, super seriously and probably will get over the line.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like, because if Kerry were, like, I think we'd all imagine Mayo would beat Louth. So then if Cork were to somehow get something from Kerry, then all of a sudden, Kerry would be looking at possibly finishing third in the group, which I know was enough to get out of, but you're making life a lot harder for yourself then, moving forward. I suppose before we finish up, player of the week and moment of the week from the football action. I mean, not a huge lot to probably choose from, but what are you thinking?
Yeah, you're right. Not a huge lot to look at. I think one of the main ones that jumps out straight away is Ronan O'Toole from Westmeath. Fantastic performance from him. And the Smith, I thought, deserves a shout from Roscommon. I think he was really, really good. Keane McKeown impressed me for long periods of that game as well. I'm flicking through all the games in my head. Brian Hurley from Cork. Great performance from him again. I would probably go for Ronan O'Toole from Westmeath as my player of the week. I think he was fantastic for Westmeath throughout that game. And unlucky that he didn't get something for his efforts.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah, I'd probably lean towards him as well. Like, Brian Hurley obviously had a very, very good game as well. In fairness, I think he scored 8 points versus Louth.
Carl O'Connell maybe either.
Yeah, German Murtha as well for Roscommon actually had a very, very decent game, and so did Kieran Murtha. Both Murthas as well were very good for Roscommon. In fairness, definitely Dublin players getting player of the week after after that performance. But there we go. But yeah, I suppose we'll wrap this up here anyway. Cheers to anyone who obviously tuned in. Apologies for the connection issues at the start. Definitely going to have to just change up the internet provider. I think at this stage, I have no idea what was going on there. I thought it was Shay's internet to begin with at the start, and then
yeah, so did I. So did I. It wouldn't be the first time this thing has acted up on me.
Yeah, but no, cheers anyone who tuned in. Leave a like, subscribe, make sure to check out Seamus's podcast as well. Play on GA, search that into YouTube. Make sure to subscribe over there as well. So yeah, cheers anyone who tuned in, and we'll speak to you all again soon.